Honestly, can I make this my intro? Like, would you guys be mad? Hi shawties, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Megan McGuire. If you're new here, that's my name. Oh my god, I messed it up. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan McGuire, and if you've been here before, how you doing? On my YouTube channel, I mainly like to talk about true crime, and my weakness has been lately focusing on Philadelphia, Pennsylvania based killings, places, whatever. And I said I wasn't gonna continue to do that. But I'm gonna continue to do that for today. For those of you who don't know, I mean, I think I mentioned it before. I minor in criminal justice for shits and giggles. My major is media production, so I like to do this and I like to talk about the bad stuff, you know. But I take a lot of criminal justice classes, and I took criminal behavior this semester. We basically focused on people within Pennsylvania and in the Pennsylvania court system, so that way it would be easier for us to learn about, especially going forward, learning about law and everything. Even though I already took those classes, I kind of went backwards. This is a freshman class and I'm a senior, and it's really embarrassing, but I'm so glad to be done it because this class absolutely sucked. Anyway, so I took it this semester, and we actually studied a lot of cases I had never heard about before. I knew about this case. I didn't know the guy's name. I remember hearing about a guy who kept women in his basement, and that's who we're talking about today. So, yay! His name is Gary HEIDNIK, and we will be getting into his story, his background, and the piece of human being that he was. So, before we do all that, I just want to say thank you guys for those of you who have subscribed, and if you like true crime and you like talking about things spooky, in that nature, or as Haley Elizabeth likes to say, all things spooky, scary, skeleton. You can follow my YouTube channel. I really like to just sit here and talk about it. I really want to expand outside of Pennsylvania. I just think bringing light to like smaller known cases within Pennsylvania is kind of cool. I mean, this guy and probably the next case that I'm going to go into are the two biggest serial killers in Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure that there's only 3 recorded in Pennsylvania. I mean, that information has probably changed by now. But these are like the 2 guys who got caught. So I'm going to talk about Gary HEIDNIK in this video. And the next video, I'm going to be talking about Marty Graham. So, give me, outside cases you want to hear about. I don't even care if it's, one of the most basic cases like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer. We'll get into that. I would like if you guys requested it, but I don't want to talk about it because those cases have been covered over and over and over again. But I would like to. I always love listening to like the big ones. But today we're going to be talking about Gary HEIDNIK, and we're going to get into it. I'm not going to go too much into his background just because, like, he doesn't really deserve it. I think focusing on him should be the main source of this video. I do want to really speak on the victims and the people that he captured, because there's the one, Josephina, who is probably going to be the main victim of this story. That her story blows me away, and just the way she managed to escape the situation. I'd rather focus on them and those who were lost rather than him as much, just because he was peaceful. We all know this, but Gary HEIDNIK was born on November 22nd, 1943. He was born to his mother and his father, and he was born in Eastlake, Ohio. But he was born pretty early on, and he also had a brother, but it was a brother named Terry. But his parents got divorced, and I guess when he was a lot younger, and he went to live with his father. So did his brother. And his father got remarried, and him and his brother did not take a liking to his stepmother. They would often fight. The father would always side with the stepmother and kind of, just push the boys away. His father would punish him for things when he was younger. He wet the bed a lot, and he had done it so many times that his father would make him hang the wet sheets by his bedroom window, so that way everyone would know in the neighborhood that it was him wetting the bed, and like they would see this, like, you know, the spot on it and everything. Not really the nice thing. And it says sometimes the father even dangled him out of his window by his ankles and shook him. So that is child abuse. My favorite quote by Morbid, and they say it all the time, and I've heard other people like try to say it: feel bad for the child, not the adult. And that goes for every single one of my videos. I can feel bad for them as a child, but as soon as they become an adult, they make their own decisions on how to act, and not all people who were abused go and become. While he was still a child, he was playing and he fell into a tree, smashing his skull, and caused him a behavioral abbreviation. So, head trauma. What was the last video? I forget what the last... I can't remember, and I said head trauma, and I was like, remember? You know, OJ? Head trauma, you know? His schoolmates called him football head because of the, you know, dent and stuff in his head. Which, I mean, suck it up. Like, calm down. Coconut Head survived, you know? So when he was 18, with his father's encouragement, Gary dropped out of school and enlisted in the army. He was stationed in West Germany in 1962, but he was honorably discharged. Personality disorder, basically, and he got full disability and a pension out of this. So he had started taking nursing classes in Philadelphia in 1964, but and he completed them a year later and had an internship with the Philadelphia General Hospital. He had purchased a 3-story house. So once he got an internship, he got this house, and it was a 3-story house. And died attempts after his mother had passed away in 1970, but he came to, I guess, and was like, I'm gonna live. And he decided now to become a pastor of the United Church of the Ministries of God, which he founded himself. He became its ordained minister, and his brother, so he became Brother HEIDNIK. He received $1,500 investment, and the church made at least $500,000. In 1976, he sold his 3-story house, and he purchased another 3-story house. So the house that he bought, it was 3520 North Marshall Street in North Philadelphia. And I go to Temple University, so that's in North Philadelphia. And this guy's house was extremely close to the university, so that was good. But he didn't prey on, college students. He preyed on the mentally disabled. So he frequently went to Elmwood Institute, a house for developmentally disabled. So these girls, I'm sure I think there was boys there too, but he would visit the girls in the school, and he would hang out with them. He was friends with them, and he knew that they were a little bit slower than himself, so he knew that they could be easily. So he had his daughter Maxine in 1978 with his girlfriend Anjanette Davidson, and that is probably pretty much his background. And now we're going to get into his crimes, how it started, and what his plan was and what he really was gonna do. So Gary, he was well known in the community. He had friends. He was a pastor. People trusted him. And that's not to say that everyone didn't have suspicions about the man he really was. He had this idea of basically having sex slaves and creating a harem, and he wanted a lot of kids. he wanted a lot of kids to have on his own, and I'm pretty sure he wanted them, like, he basically wanted slaves. Like, that's all he wanted. November 25th, 1986, he had set out, and he had gone to go pick up a prostitute. So he picked up Josefina Rivera, and she said she had just given birth a few days before, and she needed money, so she was out on the street doing her thing. And one of her main rules was to never go back to a client's house. They would only strictly stay in the car. But Josefina followed him into the house. Everything seemed normal. They had sex upstairs, and he had paid her $20. And as soon as she went to go, like, pack up and leave, she said that she began dressing herself. He started to strangle her from behind.
And we had sex, and afterwards I was getting dressed, and he came up behind me and started choking me. And he started choking me, but all I could remember was, I don't know, I guess it happened so fast, all I could remember was like a film projector of things that were going on in my life was like, you know, just flipping back.
He pushed her into a dirt hole that he had dug and covered or hidden under the concrete floor, and he had chained her to a sewer pipe. He put a muffler clamp around my ankles, he put nuts on the clamps, and he crazy glued them so I wouldn't be able to take the nuts off. He placed a plywood over the hole and pushed her in there, and then he put sandbags on top so that way she couldn't move them off of it and get out. The hole wasn't big enough, and she was all bent up in the hole. She said I couldn't even stand up. He had pulled me out by my hair, and he beat me with a stick, and then he'd take me back and place me back within the hole.
And stuff, and I'm trying to, you know, and I'm like still screaming and hollering because I couldn't breathe, because I have asthma and stuff, and I'm like at all this dirt, and then like I didn't have any room to move and stuff. So he comes back downstairs, and he like pulls me out of the hole by my hair, and he has a stick, and he's just beating me with this stick, and then he puts me back in there. I was in there for a long, long time because I know I was in there at least 27 hours because of the times from the radio.
Josefina was the first out of 6 victims that Gary would capture. He kidnapped Josefina, on November 29th, and then just a week later, he had kidnapped Sandra Lindsay on December 3rd, 1986. She was 24 at the time when she was kidnapped. For the longest time, Gary would, visit the Einstein Institute or the Elmwood Institute, and he was just friends with lower income handicapped women in North Philadelphia. And other neighbors found this weird. They thought something was off about him. They thought he was fishy. And it wasn't until Sandra Lindsay went missing, and Janet Perkins, her mother, informed the police in December that her daughter went missing. And when her daughters disappeared, she asked them to search his house. She had a bad feeling. She said it was him, knew it from the start. And it's so sad because Sandra is the first murdered victim of his crimes. And she is quoted saying, "If they had did what I had told them to, my daughter would still be here today, and the rest of those girls wouldn't have gone through that torture. She was a helpless person, and she was handicapped." So, like I said, he had captured her, and he had lured her into his basement. But this time, he knew that people were gonna, be on his case, at least for about her. Not so much Josefina, because Josefina said that, she had problems with drugs, that she would disappear at times, and it wasn't unnatural for her to disappear like that. So he captured Sandra on December 3rd, 1986. He then captured Lisa Thomas, who was 19, on December 23rd, 1986. Then Deborah Dunley on January 2nd, 1987. Jacqueline Atkins on January 18th, 1987, and Angs Adams on March 23rd, 1987. His whole mission was not to kill at first, I guess, but he was never on a mission to kill. Like I said, he was on a mission to make babies. He wanted children, and he wanted lots of them. So he would essay all of his victims, and Rivera said that he was trying to get everyone pregnant. He would have sex with a woman every day, one after the other, on an air mattress in the basement, saving the women he thought weren't pregnant for last. Their bathroom was a toilet without plumbing on the basement floor, and if they talked back, he would beat them with a stick. To make sure they wouldn't hear his comings or goings, HEIDNIK gouged their eardrums out with screwdrivers. Rivera was she seemed like she was one of the more liked victims by Gary. I don't know if he had a special spot for her, even early on. She said that he did not do this to her, but she had watched him do it to all of the other victims.
In 1987, HEIDNIK went to great lengths to keep his basement torture chamber a secret. He sealed off the windows with sandbags and blasted rock music to conceal the women's screams. As time went on, his methods escalated.
He drove screwdrivers in our ears.
Why did he do that?
So I couldn't hear people knocking, coming in the house, so I wouldn't scream help.
He constantly had loud music on in every single room of his house, so that way the neighbors couldn't hear the screams, they couldn't hear anything. So they were basically, these girls felt helpless. They were all chained, everything, and they all were basically living in this small basement. And, when he got mad, he would put them in the hole. He had enlarged the hole, and only 3 of the women could fit in there at a time. And Rivera wanted to make sure that she would be one of the women chained up outside of the hole so that she could listen to him running around and doing everything, because she was one of the victims who didn't get her eardrums basically smashed. She had listened to him. She listened to him talk about the army and the psychiatric hospitals and prison and his suicide attempts, everything. And she knew that she needed to be his favorite in order to get other people out of there. She says that he basically put them in rank and on a rank system. So he was putting people in positions to be charged, and she would be one of the people that was in charge. And she had made her do things to the other women. By February, Sandra was probably the one that he had become the most frustrated with, because she was just constantly crying and fighting back and, lashing out like she was trying to get out of there. She had problems with her jaw. They weren't aligned right, and it was a struggle every time she ate, Rivera said. He actually ended up handcuffing Lindsay's wrist to a rafter in the ceiling not far from the hole, and her breathing slowed. She appeared sick and malnourished, and he was trying to get her to eat, but then he would beat her with sticks, and then he would keep hitting her and hitting her. So she would start choking, and he was like, oh man. And he went upstairs to get the keys to get her down. Rivera said when he did, her body slammed like cement, and Sandra was dead. He basically took Sandra's body upstairs, and then a few minutes later, Josephina could hear a chainsaw.
Lindsay died from a combination of starvation and torture. HEIDNIK boiled parts of her body and fed the remains mixed with dog food to the surviving women. During the investigation, police found 27 pounds of body parts inside HEIDNIK's freezer.
He took me upstairs to the bathroom, and he said, we all got to play a part in this. And I said, play a part in what? And he had me cut her limb, like her arm.
She had died of malnourishment, and, Gary says that he didn't plan on this, but he wasn't upset by the outcome. and he had brought her body, her limp body, upstairs, and the girls had heard a chainsaw. And all of a sudden, a horrible stench started to come out of Gary's house. And the house smelled so bad, and the girls said, like, that this is the worst smell they ever smelled in their life. Gary had ordered Deborah Dunley to come upstairs, and he had showed her Sandra's head in a pot and her ribs in a roasting pan. He told her that could happen to her if she didn't start getting her act together.
Nothing was working. I was trying to find something that worked that would make them shut up to stop hollering.
So you got a progressive kind of infliction of pain on these women.
I was trying to find something that would make them behave.
But it was painful to them.
I hope so. You know, that's what I was trying to achieve, you know, to make them behave.
He was feeding them dog food and stuff, and he basically cooked up her body and meshed it in a food processor and fed it to the women within the dog food. And he would bring down cookies, and the smell would be on him, it would be on his clothes, it was on everything. We didn't know for sure what it was, but we knew that we couldn't eat the food that he brought us. The neighbors reported this putrid smell pouring out of his house. So, the cops actually ended up coming by, but he basically told them that he burnt a roast, and, you know, nothing out of the ordinary seemed, and he said it just smelled really bad. He got away with that at that time because the cops didn't want to, you know, investigate further. 2 months later, Deborah Dunley was still acting out, and he had picked her to basically torture. He put a few inches of water in the hole, and her and Deborah Dunley, Jacqueline Atkins, and another girl were standing in that hole, and they had their arms chained above them, and HEIDNIK handed Rivera a battery cable and told her to tap them on Dunley's chains. And he also did the same, and then Dunley violently shook and screamed. And it wasn't long before she died from electrocution. He set out to kill her because she had acted up so much, but he also, you know, took advantage of Rivera and made her do things as well, and she says that she regrets this. Like, she wished she could convince him to stop or whatnot, but sadly, I think he would have done it anyway. HEIDNIK, this is also another thing of manipulation that he used. So Rivera was doing all this, getting on his good side, so that way one day she could eventually escape. She thought that if she had played these parts, did everything he asked for, that she would become his favorite, he would treat her differently, and eventually get out. And her whole mission was to get all the girls out alive. Sadly, this was not possible, but she wanted to get as many out alive as she could. But after Dunley had passed away, he made Rivera sign a letter confessing that she had electrocuted her, and that if anything ever happened, that she would be also to blame for this murder. So the confession that she wrote, he freed her from the chains, and he took them off of her. And he made her get in the car with him, and they drove all the way to the Pine Barrens, Jersey Devil. He opened up more to her. He told her how he chopped and cooked Lindsay, and that he had gotten the idea to blend her flesh for the dog food from a black comedy, Eating Raoul. So over the next few days, they ate together at Denny's. He took her shopping and clothes, and she slept in his bed with him. They went out to the Pine Barrens so that they could bury Deborah Dunley's body, and she knew that in that moment she could run away, but she thought it would be better if she had stayed in the car, because if she did, then he would have killed her next. And I mean, he made it clear that he would have killed her next if she tried anything. While HEIDNIK was out, there wasn't an opportunity for me to run. If I had, he would have killed the other girls, and that was another thing that she did not want to happen. She did not want the other girls to be hurt because of her actions. A few days later, like I said, he had his girl, his little girl Maxine that he had with his old girlfriend. I believe Agnes Adams is her sister. So a few days later, Heidnik and Rivera went out in the car, and Heidnik basically told her that you're going to help me pick up the next girl. And they picked up Agnes Adams, and he went downstairs and put her in the hole. And to reward her for doing so well, Heidnik told her that she could see her family, and she knew that this was her chance. So she told him to drop her off at 6 and Girard. She had to return in within 20 minutes, or he was gonna go, on a murder spree. So she had returned in about 25 minutes, not setting off any red flags. During this time, she had gone to a payphone. She called the police. She said, "This is gonna sound crazy. You're not gonna believe me. I was just held captive for 6 months. I need you guys to meet me here, or he is going to kill the other girls." And she told him all about Sandra and Deborah.
Josefina Rivera escaped and flagged down a police officer.
2 cops pounded on the door. He opened the door and came out and wouldn't let them in, and they could smell the stench. They didn't want him going anywhere. They busted him right then and there.
And so they had trouble believing her at first, because when she ran off and called 911, they said it was too far-fetched. They thought they thought that she was upset with her old man or something like that, this was her boyfriend, that she was upset. But then she showed them the scars on her wrists and her ankles of where the trains were, and she told them to go inside his house and go in the basement, and that's exactly what the cops did. When they went down into the basement, the cops had found 2 women naked below the waist, chained together, attached to pipes. The other was found in the pit under the plywood, and the one girl said that when the cops came down, she was so not believing what was happening, and she was so taken aback for words. They freaked out, and they were under there, and the cops were "What are you talking about?" And basically she was talking about the girl who was in the hole covered by the plywood, and they opened it up and found the girl, and they were just astonished by what they were seeing. All of the remaining 4 girls, including the new girl Agnes, who was picked up, were released. So those who were released and lived were Josefina Rivera, Lisa Thomas, Jackie Adkins, and Angus Adams. And then Sandra Lindsay and Deborah Dunley were sadly the victims, and Sandra Lindsay was murdered on February 7th, 1987, and Deborah Dunley was murdered on March 19th, 1987. So Josefina was only in captivity for 6 months, and she says today that, she is still affected by it. She still has flashbacks from everything. When they did testify against Gary Heidnik, he would not look at her, and she said basically, he looked at no one, but I was just glad that he was not as smart as I was. So she outsmarted him. The other captives they don't get along with Rivera as much, because they said that for acting as his helper, the other captives do not get along as well with Josefina as they do each other. Gary Heidnik was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. He was I want to die. He was I'm not sorry for anything that I did. And I'll include clips from his one interview. He is just a piece of shit. Basically, he was you guys don't get what I was trying to do, and I had to get rid of her body, so of course I was gonna feed it to the other girls. I wasn't gonna leave evidence. You
Sitting there, trying to figure out what the hell to do, what the to do, I started chopping up the body.
That he inspired Buffalo Bill, and if you don't know who Buffalo Bill is, if you've never seen Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill is one of the serial killers in that movie. Spoiler alert, not really, but yeah, so his crimes inspired a movie, basically, or parts of a movie,
Heidnik's sick perversions are what partly inspired the character Buffalo Bill in the Academy Award-winning movie The Silence of the Lambs. Heidnik had a pit he'd fill it with water and electric shock the women.
He was the last person to be executed in Pennsylvania, and it was on July 6, 1999. He picked 2 slices of pizza and 2 cups of coffee as his last meal. And the sisters of Sandra Lindsay's family and the Dunley family watched as he died by lethal injection. Rivera chose not to go. She said it would have been better to see him sitting in a 4x4 cell, so he got the easy way out, which I agree, he should have rotted. That is the story of Gary Heidnik. I think what Josephina says I think it's an Oxygen documentary. She says basically, she's like, I am myself. I am not one of Gary Heidnik's victims. I am Josephina Rivera, and that's how I am going to live the rest of my life. She was like, I don't want to be remembered by that. She was like, I would honestly like to forget about everything that happened down in that basement. And I kind of brush over the sex part of it, but the sex was never consensual. It was all SA. So eat that, and then also watching 2 of the girls that you're down in that hole with be murdered, and I just can't imagine the emotional and physical turmoil that they all had. And it is also said that if this had not happened exactly when it did, within 2 to 3 weeks, those girls would have died because of malnourishment. So this happened at the right time. That is the video for today. Gary Heidnik is a piece of shit, and he didn't deserve to die. He deserved to rot and then die. So, a little controversial right there. But if you like this case, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys coming to watch, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe if you did, and you can also follow me on my social medias. I'm gonna put it right there. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and I hope your Thanksgiving went well, and I hope your Christmas season is amazing. Bye, guys.